Amish way of unconditional forgiveness out of obedience to God is awesome.
The Amish story is about unconditional forgiveness. The Amish practice the old forgiveness, the forgiveness that is a commandment from God. It's not the forgiveness about feeling better, therapeutic forgiveness. It's not about conditional forgiveness. People who say with appropriateness, I will forgive, but there are steps that need to be made. The Amish forgiveness is unambiguous and clear. It comes from a literal reading of the New Testament. Not all of the New Testament, but part of the New Testament, that if we are to be saved, we must forgive, and without conditions attached. And I decided to choose this story because I was riveted along with the nation when it happened in 2006. You know, we're a nation of short attention span, and this story had traction.
It appears that the suspect entered the school with the intention of taking hostages. Like I said, he came with 2x6s, 2x4s, and these weapons.
The country was riveted, so it traveled across the world. People were focused on it. And precisely what happened was that a neighbor, Charles Roberts, not an Amish man, who had a grudge against God because one of his daughters had died at childbirth, carefully and with premeditation, burst into a small one-room schoolhouse of the Amish and killed 5 young Amish girls under the age of 10 and shot the remaining 5 who survived, some barely holding on even today, paralyzed. And immediately, within hours after this act, the Amish forgave him and embraced his wife. They didn't sue her saying, you should have known. They embraced her. They turned over money that they had been sent to her to make sure that she would be all right. They showed up at his funeral because Charles Roberts killed himself after shooting all the young women. They showed up at the football games of Charles Roberts' son. So it was an unconditional forgiveness.
But the Amish are not calling for revenge. Instead, they're preaching something much different: forgiveness.
Unimaginable crime followed by an inconceivable response.
And there was a complicated response to it. There was a response that was interesting and complicated, and I didn't feel it was adequately covered in the newspapers, and that's why I chose it. Many of the people responded powerfully because of the moral grandeur of the Amish, and they felt it to be moral grandeur, and they yearned for the capacity to do that themselves, but there were other people who raised questions.
Can this radical obedience fulfill those needs? I don't think so. You can only deal with them by, in some way, suppressing them. I think that is violence. Violence done to yourself, above all.
There was a response that it was, in some fundamental way, inappropriate, that it was premature, and that, according to, to many Jews, and this is a divide between Christians and Jews, it needed to be conditional.
The Jewish response, as I understand it, isn't to be so quick to forgive, and it isn't to be so quick to spread love around. Judaism teaches that there are times when you're supposed to hang on to your anger. But even more than that, it teaches that forgiveness has to be earned. There's no forgiveness unless it's preceded by repentance. And for that reason, I think that murder, by definition, is unforgivable.
So what happened, and why I chose this story, was it showed forgiveness and the response to it in all of its complexity and contradictions. I mean, I think most of us saw the moral grandeur in it, but there were interesting questions to be asked. about that forgiveness as well. And I think in some regard that's what riveted me. And I felt all those emotions. I felt admiration, deep admiration. I felt baffled as well that it came so quickly. I was troubled too, wondering whether they had spent time sitting with their grief, a necessary period, whether it was rushed through. And also, I was sympathetic to the questions raised by many Jews about the appropriateness of it, the right of it, and whether those necessary steps, that choreography of acknowledgement, contrition, and restitution had been paid attention to sufficiently.